Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you are on the Practitioner's Corner. Thank you for joining us. Lisa, I can't wait for us to get into your story because I've known you along at different points in your journey, but I don't know your journey. So let's do this. Let's do, first of all, introduce yourself and your current company.
Absolutely. So yes, as you said, I'm Lisa Sterling. I am the Chief People Officer at Perceptix, which is a really fun company to be the CHRO or CPO at because everything we do is about the employee experience. It's about employee listening. It's about activation of data.
Oh, cool.
It's about listening with intent. And that's kind of what you're supposed to do as a CHRO, right? Is listen to your people.
You and these being an HR leader at HR technology companies. What's going on?
Man, I'm a big believer in really not just believing in, but being passionate about the product or service that the organization I work for
Right.
delivers. And I also believe in drinking your own champagne. And so I am a huge believer in I want to work for a company that I not only am passionate about their products and services, but they can make my life better. And HR tech has been that for me, whether that was at Ceridian or Mercer, Smart Recruiters, now here. Like I get to be I get to be the buyer, the consumer, and the customer all in one.
Well, and your product people probably love you because they get the inside rather from a paying customer, an outside customer, they get internal data.
Mhm.
I think they love you as well.
I
So
mean,
how direct are you with your product people? Let's
well, I
be
was just
honest.
gonna say,
Do they
I would
really
say
love?
they love me. Like some of them might actually want to put a muzzle on me and like, could you stop giving us feedback, right? Well, part of my journey, and I don't know if you know this, but part of my journey that got me into this was running product. I ran product at Ultimate Software for their talent module.
Right.
And that's what I originally started at Ceridian for, was to run the talent side of the Dayforce product. So I have a passion for product. I understand how product should be consumed by a CHRO. And so yeah, I'm very direct, Ryan. Like if something isn't working as designed, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I'm going to say, I don't understand why you designed it like
Right.
this. You're literally not making my life better. You're making it more
Yeah.
complicated.
Yeah. Well, and you have an interesting perspective where they may not, right? They're a product. You're a consumer. You've used it for throughout your entire career, and you know how your people also need to use the product and what they need to get out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's go backwards. Ryan likes doing this, and so I'll do it. Let's go back to high school or college, wherever you feel like. Did you?
Elementary school.
Yeah, yeah. Did you? Did you?
No, we're not
Did you?
going there. No.
Did Did
I
you
was
have
the
an idea? Did you have an idea if this is what you would end up doing, or did you have a
no.
different? Did you have a different path? What was your path?
So as you know from what you do know about me, I'm a talker. I have a lot of opinions. I'm very direct. I like to ask hard questions. I wanted to be a defense attorney or be in the FBI. I thought
Mm.
those two paths were going to leverage my strengths, my curiosity, my sense of always wanting to dig into and understand why things are the way they are. And that was the path I was going to go down. Then I went and started college and I was like, "Oh my god, I don't wanna go to school that long." Like, that's terrible.
Nope,
Yeah,
we're done. We're
It
done.
that's an 8-year journey. No, that's a bad idea. Yeah,
Yeah, and then I'd have this mound of debt and I'm like, "Oh, great, so I'm gonna be working and
yeah.
I'm literally gonna be paying off loans versus buying new cars and the big house and all these things that I thought having those types of jobs would afford me." And so, yeah, no, I quickly got an opportunity at the time it was called Raymond Carson Associates. It eventually became
Mhm.
Connexa after multiple name changes. And I got into sales and I realized that all the things that Ryan, stop laughing. All the things my mother and father got told about me in junior high and high school at conferences that were perceived to be negatives,
Right.
I found a way to harness them in a way that actually elevated my ability to make an impact. I recently got the opportunity to be part of a best-selling book now called Now Near Next. And I wrote a whole reflection in there about the fact that I was continuously being made to feel like my voice should be not heard, that I should be seen, not heard, as a
Right.
young female, both in high school, early in college, and then early in my professional career. And sales gave me the opportunity to say, to hell with that. I'm going to be heard. And I was able to use my influence and energy and passion to make money, right? To maybe not be able to afford the Maserati that I aspired and still aspire to have, but it was a path to getting me going somewhere. And I started at an HR tech company, so I quickly learned about HR. I will tell you, I used to joke, and I joked about this when I got offered my first CHRO role. I was a walking HR violation for many years, I think. Um, I had a refrigerator in my office when it was okay that had beer
Yeah.
that we could drink at 4 o'clock on a Friday
That's right.
afternoon, right?
That's
That's not
normal.
okay now.
I
That's
mean,
normal.
yes, if you work from home, Ryan, you can do whatever you want.
Or if you work for Anheuser-Busch, that's a
Yes.
different
Yeah.
bit. That's
Yeah.
expected. Now wait a
Okay.
minute. What was your because Rudy was running Connexa.
Yes.
What was your
Yeah.
when was your because Ryan worked for Connexa as well for years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was your paths or what was your time periods?
So I started at Connexa in April of, oh my gosh, how do I remember this? I can't remember what I wore last week, and I can remember when I started. April of 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left early 2009 because I had this
Mhm.
wild hair that I'd had for many years that I wanted to get out of this tech space and go be a state farm agent and run my own state farm agency. Um, it was an awesome diversion. I learned
Yeah.
so much about
Yeah.
running my own business that I quickly jumped back into the HR tech space and said, "Ooh, I'm done with this."
That sounds like someone who goes to real estate
Yes.
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they need a
Yeah. Yeah.
job. Like, I'm gonna get my realtor's
Get my
license.
real estate
Yeah.
license.
Yeah.
Let me do that. They do it for a bit and they're like, this is horrible.
Lisa, you'll love this, and I won't do it now because it'll be a big blank camera. Oh, maybe I will. I'll let you two talk. Literally right there, 2 feet away, I've got 2 10exa's, the big ones that we had at the Lincoln office. They're sitting there, and I want to hang them on the wall. My wife tells me that would be the most asinine thing ever to do. It's like,
Ah,
I
Connex-
love the 10exa's. I don't know
Connexa was
why.
a great company. They did great stuff. I mean, Rudy was, if you didn't fall in love with Rudy, something was wrong with you.
Yeah.
Rudy,
Like,
Rudy had a vision back then
right.
that a lot of people couldn't wrap their head around. He was a
Right.
visionary and saw a path to bringing all of these different tech stacks together to
Yep.
do what a lot of the HCM solutions are doing today.
I know.
He
Yeah.
was doing it back in the early 2000s when people thought
Mhm.
he was crazy, right? Like, we acquired web hire. I mean,
Yeah.
it felt like every 3 weeks we were acquiring a company, honestly.
Right.
But it
Did
was
y'all
fun.
overlap, Brian? Did y'all
Yeah,
overlap
we
in your
did.
time period?
Yeah. That's why I said I was like, I feel like I know you. Like,
Yes,
it
it
took
really
me a
did.
moment to remember.
Well, she was on the,
Yeah.
you must have been in the Lincoln office
I
then.
was. Yep.
Yeah. So that's where I took. So I was down there for something, and Amy Osorio were walking through the hallway, and I was like, I really want those. If you ever get rid of these two very specific ones, I want these. And I left the building, and she shipped them to my house. I was like, that is amazing. That is amazing. And they're literally sitting right here. I'm gonna hang them up.
Listen,
That's
Can't
how
believe this is an alumni meeting.
that's
Look
how
at
lame
you.
I am. I'm literally gonna hang something up from 20 years ago, whatever it's been.
I
Yeah.
mean, Conexa was it has a special place in my heart. One, because it really Troy Kanter, who
Hmm.
I still talk to this day, saw something in me that I don't know that nobody else saw, but he took it and he ran with it and he challenged me to get out of my own way.
Wow.
Challenged me to think differently about certain things. And to this day, I still give him a lot of credit for the success that I have had because he believed in me when I was a smart mouth 20 something who thought the entire world owed
I'm
me.
gonna say fireball.
Yeah.
Is that the technical term?
Yeah.
Fireball?
Not what's in your fridge, but
No. Yes. However,
yeah.
I do like Fireball. I'll just say
I
that.
do too. I
Um,
do too.
the other reason it's special to me is it is where I met my second husband.
Right.
Um, At
nice.
one point, I worked there, my husband worked there, my brother-in-law worked there, and my sister-in-law worked there. The whole Sterling clan ran different parts of the business. And I remember we had so many like
Wow.
family dinners, Thanksgiving, whatever, where my mother-in-law and father-in-law would come and we'd all be talking shop, right? Like
Oh yeah. Oh
Becky
yeah.
was sales, Shane was product.
Strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
father-in-law looked at me and he goes, I don't even understand what the hell you people
Why
do.
are we here? Why are we here? I just came for the turkey.
We're
And
building
y'all
a
are
smarter
y'all are
workforce.
doing a strategic offsite.
He just wanted mashed potatoes and gravy.
Yeah, yeah.
He said,
Connection was good for they were good. I love the company. I fell in love with the company from day one. I still have a lot of relationships with people from there, but
Yeah.
there were specific people in the organization, and sure, it's kind of affected you moving forward, that had an impact on my career and everything that I've done and the way I think today. And I can pick out moments for each of those people that I thought when I first saw them, like, yeah, you're not the brightest. Like I'm not. But then, a month later, sorry, a month later, I'm like, wow, I was wrong. Like,
yeah.
Was I
and
on
they
that
shaped my. You were not on. You were always the brightest. You were
list?
the one I was like, I need to be her, which is
Goodness.
why I took the 10exa's home with me.
So after the State Farm bit, was Ultimate your next stop?
It was, and that's an interesting story too, right? So again, going back to the incestuous nature of these companies, right?
Right.
There was a gentleman who, Ryan, you might remember him, Zach Thomas, who worked at
Yeah,
so he ran
yeah.
product.
That's her
Uh,
cousin, by the way.
no,
Yeah, of course.
No.
not a dear friend.
Yeah.
He had
He's
reached out
gone
to
on
me,
to do all kinds of cool stuff.
right?
Yeah.
He reached out to my husband and asked Shane if Shane wanted to leave Connexa and join him at Ultimate. He was running product for Ultimate, but it wasn't for the recruitment side, which is really where Shane's expertise was
Right.
and is. It was more on the performance, career, leadership development side. And
Oh,
Shane's like,
interesting.
you should be talking to Lisa. And so it was about that time that I was really starting to contemplate, like, is this being my own boss, having this really small organization, not being part of something big and grandiose, right? Is this for me? And so Shane and I had a really difficult series of conversations financially because we were going to walk away from a building lease and all kinds of stuff that comes
Right.
with this that could have a detriment to our family. And I made the leap and said, you know what? You only live once. If we live poorly, great, but we'll have a great family, right? Like I'm going to do what I love. And so I jumped back into that and went to work for a gal by the name of Laura. Her and Zach were awesome people to get connected to. And I had a really good run there. And I started in the product side. And then over time, started to move into how do we become the best consumer? Again, this concept of drink your own champagne,
Yep.
of leveraging our product. Because the one thing that Ultimate wasn't great at that time was being their own best customer. Like
Right.
we practiced some of what we preached, but not all of what we preached. And Viv Maza, who is one of by far the best chief people officers I've ever known and had the pleasure of working with in my career, really was like, yes, we should start doing this. And so we were doing all these amazing things from an HR perspective, but we weren't leveraging our product in the way that we should. And I think that's really where my love for product and HR started to overlap. I still at that point would have never told you in a million years that I was going to go be a CHRO, but I really liked the ability to get involved in parts of the HR aspect, the fun parts, and then implement the technology to make our people's lives easier, to make accessibility to data easier, to make the integrity of information far greater than ever before. And that's where I think that to me is my tipping point where I started to tip my toes into truly the HR function versus selling into or building product for.
So the CEOs that I know that you've worked for, they all have something in common. So David, Jerome, Rudy, etc. They all. I'm not going to say cult leaders because that is
That's
a
exactly.
negative.
No, that's exactly.
Exactly what you want
That's
to say.
Is
exactly what
that
it
am I
is.
on? Okay,
It
but you know what I'm
was
saying?
all of them.
Visionaries. Like
Visionary.
we're
Okay.
going in this direction, and I can see. First of all, I can see falling in love with that.
Oh,
I mean, in all of those cases, to the person, it's like when you're around them, they 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 will get you on the page and they will show you what North Star is, and it's like, okay, let's go. Like, I could see it being easy to then be a part of that.
Oh, Scott Scherr was the same way. I remember the first time I landed in Fort Lauderdale and went to the Weston campus, which was, we called it
Yeah.
home court because it was a huge basketball court. The moment I shook Scott Scherr's hand and I listened to him for 5 minutes, I was like, dude, I'll fall
Done.
on the sword for you.
Yeah,
Look,
where you at? Where do you want us to live? Well,
yeah,
what's the deal?
what's
Yeah.
next? And you know, David was that way.
Yes.
David and Scott were very similar, but very different.
Yeah.
And my current CEO, John Borland at Perceptix, is very much like Scott. Like, if I had to take two of my CEOs that I've ever worked for, it's Scott and John that are the most alike because they lead with heart.
Right.
Even though they're visionaries and know where they're going to go, they
Right.
don't lead with their head, they lead with their heart first. And
Right.
that to me is what truly makes an organization special from a people perspective.
It's almost the I don't care attitude, and they just do it because it's right for them,
Absolutely.
and it's what they visioned, and you're either on the you're
Yeah.
either coming with me for the ride, or you're not. Yeah, I mean, I remember. So William, when you say cult, like, that's essentially what it
I didn't
was.
mean
Like,
that as a bad way.
you were there, you weren't.
Yeah.
And those that weren't got off the train pretty
Very
quickly.
good.
Yeah,
And I
I love
think
it.
that's okay too, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe
absolutely.
cult's not the right word. Maybe that's
No,
not
no,
Yeah,
no.
but we
more.
understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think
Kind of like the Jeep sign behind you.
yes,
Like,
yes.
I honestly, up until just a few minutes ago, I didn't realize. I knew it said Jeep, but I was like, Jeepers. I
No,
don't know why. And then I saw the Jeep above it. I'm like,
No,
oh,
no, it's just cheap.
it's a
Got it.
Jeep.
All
It's
right.
a Jeep.
Tracking.
it's an
Yeah.
obsession. It's an obsession. But
Yeah. Same
that's the
thing.
point. I think when there is that much focus and passion behind a vision, to your point, people are either with you or they're gracefully exiting and going left stage and finding their next, right?
Right.
I
Right.
think that is a beautiful thing because there's too many people that work for organizations who just stumble along, right? They're
Right.
not thriving, they're surviving,
Mhm.
they're
Yeah.
getting a paycheck, they don't love what they do. But in this type of organization, you almost feel like a misfit if you're not aligned.
Right.
And it makes it easier for you to gracefully exit and go do something else.
Right.
Whereas, you know, again, in some companies, you can just sit and just
Collect
be.
a check.
Yep. And I don't want to work with people like
Mm-mm.
that.
No.
Mhm.
I want to ask you a question about the relationship between the chief people officer, CHRO, whatever the highest level of talent there is, and the relationship between that and the founder, the CEO. What is the optimal? What have you found is the
Good question.
optimal relationship between A and B? Like, what should it be?
Listen, I'm going to use my current situation
Sure.
because it to me is optimal, and it's part of the reason I came here. And Ryan, you'll know a bunch of people, but I came to Perceptix because it truly felt like I was coming home. And when I say home, back to my Conexa days, there are a ton of Conexa alum that work for this company. Chad Tonages, Amy Craiglow, like I can
Mhm.
go through a list of people who worked at Conexa with me who are here.
Yeah.
They've been here longer than me, so
Right.
I'm the newbie. But John, when I was interviewing with John was very clear up front that he didn't want a CHRO. He wanted a strategic partner. He wanted
Oh,
somebody who he could call at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and say, I am thinking about something. Can we just think out loud together? Can we have a conversation? I'm not suggesting John doesn't make decisions without me. He does all the time. But when it comes to
But he
cultural,
shouldn't.
well, right.
Now she's really thinking.
no,
You
no.
shouldn't.
You're making a decision. No.
Yeah.
The decisions that I think are most important that impact our people, our culture, our organizational success because it impacts our leaders, et cetera. Him and I have this incredible relationship. And he is a founder. He's one of the co-founders of the organization. He's the only founder left. The rest have moved on. But that relationship between us started during the interview process. And that's what made me really be like, this is it, right? If I'm going to leave Smart Recruiters, this is it. And Jerome and I had a very similar relationship.
Right.
I think that the challenge with the founder relationship in CHRO is depending upon the ego and how the CEO thinks, you can be a token role. And I
Right.
don't mean that
Mm.
rudely by any
No,
way,
of
shape,
course
or
not.
form,
It's
or
interesting.
disrespectfully, but it's kind of like, hey, Lisa, I want your opinion. Okay, great. I'm going to go do it my way anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I checked the
Right?
box. Move on.
Yeah, I have you.
I
And
asked you.
that doesn't happen all the time, right?
Right.
It's not that way with John. Like, I'm not going to say he always takes my approach, but we can sit and iterate and banter back and forth in a really productive way and
Oh,
come
that's
to a
cool.
collective agreement. But
Yeah.
it is a collective agreement. It's not a, well, I don't
Right.
care what you have to say, I'm just moving on.
So,
Yeah.
so I've got a question here about, and this is leaving one organization as a CHRO or a CPO where you're not just a token, you're a strategic advisor. So leaving one leader to the next leader. How do you make that decision? When do you come to that conclusion? Like,
Mm.
okay, it's time to leave this leader and go to support this leader here. Is it a vision change? Did something change in a relationship?
It's
How
like
does that work?
changing religions. I mean, it seems to me that it's like
Yeah,
going from Presbyterian to Methodist.
yeah.
Like
Unless you're
you're,
just a token, but you're not.
oh no, that's
Yeah,
different. No, I
yeah,
mean, if you're really bought in, I think that's what Lisa's
yeah,
saying. When she buys in, when she goes in, she's all in. She pushes the chips all
yeah,
in.
yeah.
But your question is really interesting. It's like, at what point do you take your chips back and you do something different?
Right. Do you wake up and say, "Yeah, I'm over you," or is it like something that is
Wow.
it something that builds up and you're just like,
Hey,
my work is done. I need to
thanks,
move
Ryan.
on and build
About my
something.
Philly,
past relationships and when
yeah,
I was in that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I,
Ryan,
you know,
Philly
yeah.
called. They want their directness back. Yeah, I'm done with
Oh,
you.
I love it. I love it.
Whoa,
Um,
Yeah.
whoa.
so Ryan, it's an interesting question because I I can't answer it in the way that you're asking the question, and here's why. When I chose to leave Ceridian,
Right,
um, I had major health issues, and
right.
I literally went into surgery on January 2nd, 2020, and had 4 different surgeries done all at one time.
Oh my.
4 weeks later, I proceeded to get on an airplane and fly to Europe to speak at an HR tech conference and then go to Scotland. And during that time, my body had not been given time to recover the way it needed
Right.
to. And I didn't feel good. And on that flight home, I remember thinking, this is pre-COVID, right? Like I'm getting home February 11th, February 12th. I
Wow.
remember thinking to myself, what in the hell am I doing? Like, I am not
Right.
putting my oxygen mask on first, like my flight attendants
Yeah,
would me to do.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so for me, I wasn't leaving David. I wasn't leaving Ceridian.
No,
I was
no.
moving to take care of me and put me first.
Well,
Uh,
and if I remember that whole process, not just their Ceridian was when I worked with Dayforce and Ceridian
mhm,
separately and then collectively. They were a hot mess for a long time.
they were.
Right.
And so you joined them in that process and kind of you got the boat on the right path and pointed in the right direction, built in the right way, and you took them back public.
Yep,
And so on a certain level, like I looked at it outside looking in, like you did your job. You
I did.
did the job. You did the bit.
Absolutely.
Like you didn't really need to do anything else. That also was in conjunction with having a health crisis or a health scare. It's like that's that moment in life where you're like, you know what? Let me rethink.
Yep,
It's a good time to rethink.
it was.
So, but you did a wonderful job at Ceridian. I got to work with you a bunch on different things. So, and again, nothing about Ceridian about the hot mess comment. It's just they were a company, a 30-year-old payroll
Yep.
company that just needed to be modernized.
And David was the breath of fresh air
100%.
that company needed.
That's
And then
exactly right.
to this day, he will always hold a very special place in my heart because he is who pushed me to go into the CHRO role. I remember him
Yep.
calling me one evening and saying, "We want you to be our chief people officer." And I
You're
ended
like,
up laughing out loud.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like,
That's
no.
terrible idea.
No.
Terrible idea.
But
Terrible
like
idea.
we said before, like I'm a walking HR violation. I say what I think. I don't really adhere to policy. I think policy's stupid and needs to be broken. Like I'm a grown ass adult. Just give me the power to do my job and stop putting parameters around me. All
Yeah.
those things. So I told my husband, went downstairs and I told my husband, I was like,
He
David,
laughed.
he's like, you did what? You turned down, do you know what kind of money you can make? And I was like, do you know how miserable
You need to
I'm
call.
going to
You need to call him back.
I was like, babe, I know. So I sat on it for a few days and then I was like, okay, I'm going to call him back. So I called him back and I started asking questions like, how much power do I really have? Like, what are you really going to go let me do? And he gave me a blank canvas and said, the reason we want you to do this is because you don't believe in 90% of what HR is today. Go
That's right.
make it what it needs to be. And from that point, that was in 2015, we
Yep.
were about a 1.9 on Glassdoor.
Right.
We spent the next 3 years investing all of our time and energy in truly an integration between Dayforce and Ceridian, building the right culture, ripping out old process and governance. And right before we went public on the NYSE in April of 2018, we were named one of Glassdoor's top 15 companies
Yeah.
based on our employee advocacy. So we went from a 1.9 to a 4.7 in 3 years.
Yep.
We had the most successful IPO on the TSX that year and one of the most successful on the NYSE. And we made a lot of people millionaires. They were able to
Yeah.
retire with that money, right? And so to your point, William, when 2020 came around, it was easy for me to not easy, I shouldn't say that, but it was logical and I felt like my job had been done and I was handing the keys to the kingdom to somebody else. I had done what I needed to do. I also knew I wasn't the right person
Right.
to
For
take
the
Ceridian to
next.
that next phase because
Yeah.
I like the growing, I don't want to polish things. I want to be part of the build. I want to
Yep.
help go from a shit show to awesome, right?
Yep.
Not just, oh, we'll just continue to make it better and better. Like that's
Yeah.
not fun for me.
No, that's
So
boredom for you.
it is. And then EverCommerce came along and I met Eric and he was like, we're going to do an IPO. We really don't have a CHRO. Like, so I went there knowing this was not a long-term gig. Like
Right.
this was not a fit for me long-term. It was out of the HR tech space. It was an organization that was 51 different acquisitions growing. It's an amazing company. Let me just tell you that they're continuing to do great things for the SMB market. But it just wasn't for me. So I knew there was a time bound on that. And I'd always, always, always admired Jerome and thought what he was doing way back in the day with smart recruiters and creating this free experience for talent acquisition teams and doing these reverse recruiting events. I was like, I want to be part of that. Well, the benefit for me was our previous head of FP&A and investor relations at Ceridian had left and was their CFO. So I had the honor of working alongside Jeremy Johnson, who I adore immensely. But as Jerome started to transition out of that organization, at that time, back to your question, Ryan, I knew I couldn't be there any longer because I joined for Jerome and his vision.
Yeah.
I had no idea what the board and the next CEO were going to do. Now they've gone on and done tremendous things. I probably could have stayed, but this opportunity with John and Perceptix came up and I was like, I'm going home. I'm literally going back to where I started. And my goal is that I'm not working full time anymore, that I get to go into a consulting role or a coaching role or just be on boards or whatever. But this is hopefully my last stop. And it's a damn good one.
They're going to pull you back in. There's no way. I'm sorry. That sounds good. I love hearing people say that. I'm just going to I want to be on
you hear
board.
the phone's ringing. It's Rudy. He
And,
wants you back.
and then, I'm just going to kind of relax. No,
I
sorry.
like board work. I will say I got on my first board 2.5 years ago. I freaking love it. Like I love to be able to see from other perspectives what people are doing. I get to work with the CHRO of the board I sit on. I speak with the CEO a lot. We share war stories with each other. Like it's kind of cool to be a part of it, but not be responsible for it.
100%. 100%. Well, if you're on the directors, you have a fiduciary duty and you have all of that other stuff. So there is some things that can get sticky. They are not always there, but they can get sticky. And what most people don't understand about the board of directors is that they're the ones that actually run the company.
They
Not the,
are. They
they're,
are.
the management team is there, and but they cannot be there.
Yeah.
And the board can make that decision as a board. So,
Absolutely.
but I think I say this all the time about myself that I don't believe in retirement because people in my family, when they retire, they die.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, I'm not retiring.
That
Oh,
went
no,
dark.
that's just, no, that escalated quickly.
And you thought
No,
this was your last stop.
no, I'm just saying, for me, and I've learned this, just
Can't you just mow the lawn and be happy? Like,
yeah,
you gotta die?
no, it's just one of those deals. I'm not gonna retire. I'm just gonna die in the fields. It's like
Yeah.
it is what it is. So this idea that I'm gonna get to a place and then go play golf, yeah, I don't have that illusion or delusion. I'm just not gonna be that guy. So I hope you do become a consultant and be on a bunch of boards, but my gut tells me that there's going to be another shit show of an HR tech
That needs
that
some
has a
help.
wonderful founder, and you're going to go, I could go do
Yeah.
that. I could go do
You're
that.
absolutely right. I mean, we were on vacation last week for my daughter's senior spring break, and I was like, I am keeping my laptop closed. Well, I actually didn't bring my laptop. I brought my iPad. Not going to look at my phone.
100%.
Laying by the beach, and I'm like, I'm just going to peek at Slack.
Nobody's here. I can do it.
Well, my kids are reading, right? Like my kids are avid readers. I have and this is funny. This will tell you a lot about me, and maybe I shouldn't share this out loud, but I'm going to anyways. I had a number of years ago, went through a period of time where I was getting really bad migraines. My
Yep.
father died of a brain tumor.
Oh,
And so I got paranoid, right? I'm like, oh my God, my dad
sure.
had a brain tumor, all kinds of bad things. Went in and saw a neurologist, and they did some type of brain scan on me. And I walked away going, oh my God, this is wrong. And then I was like, wait, no, look at this as positive. My results came back, and I remember my neurologist looking at him and having this face like this. And I was like, oh my God, how bad.
Never something you want to see.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's like,
I've never seen this before.
he literally said those exact words. I'm like, how many weeks do I have to live? And he's like, what?
I got a bucket list.
Yeah.
And he's like, no. He goes, Lisa, you don't have a tumor. And I'm like, okay, then is my brain not completely formed? Like you're looking at
Frontal cortex? Like what am I dealing with?
He said, he looked at it and he said, your brain waves fire faster than anybody's I've ever seen before. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, you can move from thought to thought to thought to thought. And it doesn't even
Yeah.
register to you that you've moved on. And it's funny because my husband's nickname for me since we've been first dating was Squirrel. And
Yep.
he calls me Squirrel because he's like, you can literally be mid-sentence and immediately go talk to somebody else real quick and come back and pick up where you were and just continue the conversation. And we're all standing around like, what the hell just happened? Who did she just talk to? But it is a genetic thing that my
Yep.
brain functions that way. And so when my kids sit down and they're like, Mom, you should read a book. I'm like, great. So I'll sit down and I'll start reading. Kaylee's 40 pages in and she's like, where are you at? I'm like, I'm rereading the first chapter for the second time because I still don't understand what's happening in the first chapter because I've thought about 17 different things, right? So when my kids read, I check email and Slacks because
Yeah.
they're quick, they're easy. I can respond and I can move on to the next. I can't read. If I have to sit and read a book, it's going to take me 5 times as long as somebody else because my brain doesn't allow me to focus for a long period of time. And that's not me not wanting to. I literally know it's my brain now.
So you go into a job interview
That's
Oh,
and they
God.
ask you what your greatest strength is. What do you tell them?
Pull out my neurological results. And I'm like, my brain fires really fast.
My brain, yeah, it is literally on fire.
That's so genius. Last question for me. I know Ryan's got something, but last advice you'd give your younger self. What would you
Oh,
say if you could go back in time and say, "Hey, Lisa"?
yeah. I mentioned that I wrote a reflection in this book, Now Near Next. Part of what that reflection about is what I would tell my younger self. And that was, do not let somebody quiet you just because it doesn't feel natural or normal. When I first jumped from being like a VP to an executive, I became a shell of who I was before.
Right.
I allowed myself to sit at a table and not express my opinions, not
Right.
raise my voice, not demonstrate the passion that I had.
Well, some
I
of
was
that was also people didn't ask your opinions, probably.
absolutely true, but I'd
Yeah.
never had a problem with inserting my thoughts anywhere before.
100%.
Some
100%.
reason this table as I look back, that wasn't the first time. There were other
No.
situations in both my personal and professional lives where I found myself in an uncharted space or something I hadn't done before, and for some reason I lost my voice, I lost my confidence, and I would go back and tell myself that actually losing that, I think, set me back at different points in time.
Yep.
I was able to keep going, which some people might not have, and I think that's concerning. And my other piece would be when people told me to stay the course,
Hmm.
I didn't. And I would tell my younger self, don't, right? Because if I'd have stayed the course, I would have never moved from sales to product to operations, back into sales to the HR role. And my career, I am so proud of. And part of what I'm most proud of is I look at the success of people who have worked for me in the past, either in sales or in HR or whatever. I have a couple of people who have worked for me that have gone on to be CHROs. I'm not suggesting that's all because of me. They were talented in their own right, but that is amazing, right? I have people who've gone on to be great VPs of revenue because they worked with me as an inside sales rep.
Yeah.
I don't allow other people's opinions or perceptions stop you from doing what you want to do, regardless of who is shouting at you or how uncomfortable you feel.
There are
Drops
no
the mic.
other. Yeah, there's no other questions to ask.
Walks
here.
off stage.
Mic drop.
Lisa, absolutely. Thank you so much. I know you're crazy busy, so thank you for carving out time for us and our audience.
This has been so much fun. I love this.
I
And
think you need your own show.
I thought about
She
that.
does. She does.
I
We've
thought
She
got
about
does.
space.
Squirrel. Just squirrel.
Just
squirrel.
squirrel
Done.
HR.
We're going to get on and just hammer through a bunch of things. Done.
Y'all
All
are
right.
gonna be my first guests. I'm bringing you back.
We would love that. But thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey. I can't help but think that people are going to love this episode. So thank you.